It is the return of football in Morgantown. Fall camp is finally underway. We're going to talk about the start of it, along with a little bit what Owen's been dabbling into, what Jed's been dabbling into here on the podcast the last few weeks. We're going to talk all about that here and more on this edition of In the Gun.
You are now watching Believe.
ITG.
With Wes, Owen, and Jed.
I've got the best teammates in the business.
No way!
They both played the game. They both know the game. Owen is the runaway beer truck known for having some fun.
Owen Schmitt, you have a podcast in the gun.
Owen Schmitt, like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Jed is the signal caller who is the X's and O's and the brainiac.
Statistically, always punting on fourth down makes no sense.
So we've combined those two skill sets.
Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
You are In the Gun.
Once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
Welcome into another episode of In the Gun. I'm Schuyler Callihan filling in for Wes Uhler. And I've got the best teammates in the business. That's Jed, the signal caller, Drenning, and, of course, the runaway beer truck, Owen Schmitt. Fall camp is finally underway. We can finally talk some real football. Well, maybe not quite because these guys are in shorts and T-shirts right now. But we're going to get to the fun stuff here pretty soon. But before we get started in today's episode, a shout-out to our sponsor at BetOnline, where the game starts. And, of course, do business with the folks that do business with the Mountaineers and with us, and that is Toothman Ford, where we all know cars cost less in Grafton. And Jed, you just wrapped up a spectacular series on Zach Alley. It has been a long couple of weeks, and we kind of got to that dog days of summer here on the podcast and even on the website side for me, where there's just not a whole lot going on, especially after Media Day. You did the Rich Rod series, which I expect everyone has already went and checked out. If not, then I don't know what's wrong with you. But go check it out. Go check out the Zach Alley series as well. It's done really, really well. And while you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give us a like on the YouTube page at In the Gun Podcast. Pretty fun little series that you did there with Zach Alley.
You kind of dive into some stuff in the off season, as you know, Schuyler, that you certainly otherwise don't have time to dive into once the season gets rolling, right? So.
Yeah.
Those types of things with that's some pretty intense post-production. I mean, there's a lot of content to chew on because obviously I wanted to tell the story about Rich's offense in the way that I kind of experienced it. And that's what I did over the course of 5 parts. So that was a true series. There were 5 installments to that, right? And we started at how things, really came out of the shell at Glenville and grew from there up to last year at Jack State in that series. And when you think you're doing really terrific from a traffic standpoint, then here comes the defensive series. I mean, I kind of pointed it out in part 2 of the series on Zach Alley's defense. If you ever question how passionate Mountaineer fans are about the defensive side of the football, all you need to do is look at our traffic report for that Zach Alley episode. Because I thought Rich's episode was doing some cool numbers. And then here comes episode 1 of Zach Alley's pressure defense, and it just said, hold my beer. And it did some really solid numbers for us. But it's been fun exploring everything, the genesis of where that came from. In other words, if you're going to study Zach Alley, you got to study Brent Venables. And if you want to know what Brent Venables is all about, he's all about Bob Stoops. And that all started back at the K-State days in the 90s with Snyder trying to stop Nebraska. And so you kind of start there and move forward and talk about the steps of evolution that it's undergone in the last 30 years to arrive at what Zach now deploys, which is, you talk about multiple. Some guys just say that, but it truly is. I mean, it's tough to get a beat on what his base defense even is because it changes so much potentially. Sometimes in watching tape and studying what he does, it's literally week to week. I mean, he will go wholesale changes. I don't mean tweaks. I mean wholesale changes and ambush people. I mean, they'll expect him to come out, too high in an even front. And the next thing you know, he's in an odd front. It's 3 safeties. And they're like, you haven't run that in a month. Why are you running it against us? And you can kind of tell early in the game. he catches some of these offenses off guard, the quarterbacks. It's like you're studying them in particular, and they don't anticipate this. And he reinvents himself with on a regular basis, and it's fascinating. So it was fun to study that. So yeah, I encourage you to. I don't know if we can call it a series, even though I did because it's only 2 parts. Nobody wants to talk about a duology. Nobody's going to stand there at the next to the water cooler. Hey, did you see that ITG duology on Zach? Because that's technically what a 2 part thing is. I'd look that up because otherwise I wouldn't know. But a lot of good content because there was a lot of fun stuff to dive into. And Owen, we're going to get to some more stuff. One of the things we're going to be doing here in the next week or two, I would imagine, we did this last year, and it was so popular. We're going to double back and do it again. Obviously, Wes is barricaded in Latrobe with the Steelers for his day job, for his grown-up job, right? So he's up there with Zach Frazier. He's up there with Beanie. He's up there with Doug Nestor, and Doug Nestor is getting some quality reps at that tackle spot with Steelers. So he is going to do an episode, kind of a stand-up like he did last year, and fill us in on the Mountaineers up with the Steelers in Latrobe. And Owen, I want you to walk us through what your weekend was like because Saturday he had kind of a dawn to dusk experience with our boy Ethan Gregory from over at ITG Clips because we've talked about it in the past. We're going to get rolling out. People love to watch Owen cook, and he's passionate about it, and he's good at it, and people love his recipes. So we're going to kind of spread that out over the course of the fall and have some episodes dedicated to Owen's like tailgate recipes. Owen, what was Saturday like?
Oh man, it was more of a 48-hour tour of duty, honestly, in the kitchen. Jed, first and foremost, I'm gonna back up just a little bit because I loved your series on Zach. Well, your duality, as you call it, your double barrel action there. But I got to go down to Morgantown for their coaching clinic, and Zach, when he was in his classroom or whatever, when he was
Yeah.
teaching the coaches about his philosophies. I mean, in my opinion, obviously a young guy, but very outside of the box thinker. And he is like that. He's just kind of like he's sort of one step ahead of you, show you, here's what I want you to think I'm doing, but really I'm over here. So it's going to be very fun to watch, what he has in store this year. But getting back to this weekend, it was a 48-hour crunch. Obviously, I had to do some TV magic. So I put the briskets on Friday night, the brisket and the pork butt, because those take the longest. Those are the longest cooks, and Ethan and the crew came out and they filmed me through like a 12-part series, and we went through all sorts of different recipes, very basic, things that literally anybody can do. And
I don't know about that.
Just kind of showed them the progression of kind of what I'm doing. Huh?
Probably not me. I can't even get Easy Mac in the microwave right, oh.
Well, when he said,
Hey,
Ethan told me it was the best brisket he's ever had.
Oh, dude, it was money. I mean, I pride myself on anything that I put in somebody's mouth, no pun intended. But it's something to be very, now with, football's done for me. I don't really have anything to be like, a passion project to be really good at. So I just really have fun with the barbecue, and I go off of my palate, and I've always been one of those guys who's more of like a taste guy, add a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's gotten me a pretty good way. And that's, some of that stuff that, my grandmother, I would see in the kitchen. You always want to taste what you're doing to your food. So it was an evolution. It was honestly an awesome time. It was a long day. We got, and we kind of just, I'm not going to say winged it. There was a small outline, but we had fun with it, and we ate really good. And hopefully everybody can enjoy the tailgate series and just, maybe try one or two of them, see if you like it. And, I would say even too, if you guys want, um, something I really want to try to do this year too is definitely get to Wes's tailgate and
Yes.
do some of it, do some of the barbecue. If you're a fan, stop by. Hey, if you're not a
Grateful
fan,
Dead,
stop by
Grateful Dead
anyways.
flag.
Yeah, absolutely. Grateful Dead flag in the peach lot. It'll be awesome. I also, I've been doing a ton of things. Berkeley Springs Brewing and I collaborated to come out with a beer as well. It's a nice light lager with a lime twist. So I'm sure some of that'll be flowing as well. Right now currently sold in Kroger and it's being distributed through North Central Distribution there. Just a lot of projects right now. Work with UPS has been crazy just with layoffs and very tightening up the budgets for them. So it's been a whirlwind. Plus the kiddos, T-ball and the whole nine. So I've had a bunch of stuff going on, but there's a smell in the air. It's that time of year, and for me, it's a reminder of the stank jock straps and shoulder pads. But good times on the horizon. Super excited for Rod and just to see what this team has developed into, and hoping that we get that mojo back.
It's a couple things there. Ian. First, something tells me you don't bake, you just grill and cook. And the reason I say that, I'm the same way. I love to cook, I hate to bake. And it's been pointed out to me that people who bake are kind of rule followers and conformists, because you can't really wing it when you bake. You got to follow the rules or it comes out terrible.
Yeah.
But like you said, when you're cooking, you taste your way there, right? That's point number one. Point number two, this is going to be a 12-part series running this fall. If you're interested in sponsoring this series, please reach out in the comments. That's something that's on the table because Ethan's contacted a few people and that's in the works as well. So if you're interested in sponsoring Owen's barbecue specials as a signature sponsor, we'll have the other sponsors involved as well, but that's on the table. But you talked about the smells this time of year. Owen, are you too young? I don't know when this changed, but maybe I'm dating myself by saying this. One of the things I remember, and I saw a picture on social media this week, and it immediately took me back. Did you ever like boil your mouthpiece
Oh,
and
dude,
then
yes.
Yeah.
I saw the same
was
post
it
you
okay?
saw.
Was it mint? Like was it mint and all that? I mean, as soon as I saw that picture, it took me
Buddy,
back like to when I was 12, and it was mint, and I had that flavor in my mouth, and I saw it like 3 days ago, and I'm like, wow, wow.
I mean, honestly, when we would boil our mouthpieces, it would be like, this pot of water that had been boiling for like almost
That's
seemed
right.
like they never changed it. So it's kind of
Yes,
like
Yep.
hot dog water. You'd stick your mouth guard in there, you'd pop her in. Now
that's
mint
it.
flavor, you were privy to some high class mouthpieces
This
there,
was the
dog.
mouthpiece itself. It wasn't even the water. I remember you'd go to back then. It was probably the Army Navy store that that I went to get this thing right. But it was a flavored mouthpiece. Got the same one every year for probably 59 cents, whatever it was. And you boil it in the water. And I tell you what, I'd chew the daylights out of that thing. And four
Oh
months
yeah.
later, it still tastes like mint. It still tastes like mint.
Hey, I want to ask another question, and this would be a great question for listeners that played football as well, and something we could put out as a small poll. Were you a guy who molded it, or were you a guy who just chewed on it?
I chewed
What
on it.
answer
Because there
for
was a
you?
lot of guys I knew, huh?
I just
What's
chewed
That's
your
a
on
answer,
mine.
legit
Owen?
question because
Skylar, you
hey,
you chewed on it?
there's a lot of guys who just snip the back off of it and just put it in their mouth. They won't even mold it. And I'm like, dude,
What'd you do, Owen?
how
Did you
is your
mold it?
gums? I always molded it. But
Okay,
see,
here's what I did.
I
Yeah,
yeah, so I had a molded mouthpiece, just the old classic, till
better.
I moved
You know,
to Northern Virginia, and then my mom had found this company called BrainPad, which was a upper and
huh?
lower mouthpiece and had like breathe holes in the middle. And the the consensus behind it was that it kept your jaw open so that when you would take those lower chin hits, a lot of concussions are like where your jaw goes into your skull. So your jaw will ram into your skull there, right? And this mouthpiece like basically would prevent that because your mouth would be slightly
Wow.
opened. But
You had Tony
also,
Stark develop your mouthpiece. Jeez.
listen, there's a strength aspect to it, which is legit. I mean, they're selling them. You probably get ads on your phone if you're in any sort of weightlifting or whatever. It's just a mouthpiece
We
that you
will
put in
now.
your mouth
Yeah,
that
they will
sets
now.
your
Now that my
yeah,
phone's
it
heard
sets
it all.
Yeah.
yeah, I know, but legit, and that was also a part of it would help with stability, which I know sounds crazy and stuff like that, but it would when you bite down with your jaw, the way it would set your jaw, for some reason you're stronger. I don't know, man. It might be just smoke
Makes
and mirrors,
sense.
but it worked.
I'm still
It
blown
makes
away.
sense.
I'm still blown away that
Hey,
Jed
it's
had a flavored
science.
mouthpiece. Well, that was a thing.
Well, it was a thing. And trust me, it was cheap. It was cheap.
Well, we used to
But
put Listerine
maybe
in
it
the
went away.
water.
I bet you I know what happened. How much you want to bet whatever they were putting in there to flavor it? That I chewed on it for 4 months. It was poison. So by the time you guys played, the FDA made them take it out or something.
Well,
It would explain a lot with me, right?
they had some cherry, strawberry, like they had some. I was never a big fan of it because I would just sit there and mess around with it too much. But
No,
I'm
ours
just
just
shocked that
mixed.
they had them. No offense,
Man,
but like
you guys are
before
bougie.
Sure.
2000.
Oh, it was way before 2000.
Yeah.
It was way before. But I want to answer your question. I did both. In other words, all the way up through high school, I shaped it in the boiling water. But by the time I got to college, what I noticed, and it's all in the details, it was very okay. You have that space where your face mask goes over your forehead right there, up top of your helmet, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have that tiny
Where
little
you could fit it
space
right
between the
there.
helmet and the bar. Well, what I would always try and do, I would cut the back off and just have the mouthpiece itself, and I would stick that in that space. And what I noticed was if I chewed on it in hot water, it misshaped it just enough that it wouldn't perfectly fit and it would always pop out. But if I didn't do anything with it and I just naturally chewed it, it stuck right in there. And that's what I did. Like between timeouts and this and that, I always wanted to keep it right there in my face. If you look at old pictures of me, you'll see me. My mouthpiece is sticking right there in my face mask up top, and I just grab it as soon as we start. So I stopped molding it and just started chewing on it as a result of that. So I did both. But I understand why you'd mold it. You needed every absorption ounce you could get with what you were doing. Yeah.
I'm not. Hey, look, and I was just cleaning out some stuff, and I found some old because this company BrainPad sent me like a bunch of mouthpieces, and I still have some that were like brand new. So like I pulled them out or whatever, and I was looking at them, and honestly, the design it made so much sense. And I mean, it was to the point where, like, especially when I got drafted, they sent me like an ultra violent little case that you would
Wow.
put the mouth guard in and just press a button, and it would hit it with like 10 seconds of ultra violent light
Violet
that would
rays,
like
yeah.
kill all the germs on it. But
Wow.
I mean, I'm telling you, dude, it was, and there's even times where you can see, um, like running plays, like when they did close-ups like on me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would have that thing like outside of my mouth, like chewing on it, where like half of it was in, half of it was out. But most of the time, when you went in for the heavy hits, man, you had that thing ready to go, dude. Chin strap was tight and the mouthpiece was locked and ready to cock, dude.
Think about it. What that really served as, it was the shocks on the beer truck. That damn mouthpiece was.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it
Yeah, it
was.
was.
It better
It's a
give.
brain
Yeah.
pad, dude.
Yep, that's right. So, but we're going to have a lot of fun with that. That's a great question. I agree with that. We got a lot of football folks, football heads, football meatheads out there like us that listen to this thing. So, shoot your comments at us and let you know. Were you a molder or were you a chewer? Because I know a lot of both. I know a lot
I
of both.
dabbled a
That's
little
a
bit
great
of both.
question.
I dabbled a little
Yeah.
bit, but I was more of a chewer than a molder. But I before we get to break, we got to talk about Owen's new setup here because this thing is
Oh,
spanking
yes.
nice and new. Like, look at this thing. He's got the lights shining down on the thing, and you even got
Oh, dude, I'm
the Sports Illustrated T-shirt on. By the way,
Uh,
with you and Mr. Steve Slayton and Pat White, I love it. Got the TV in the background, a little light popping from the TV as well.
oh yeah.
Big O's going
My girlfriend
painstaking.
Cassie, she hooked me up, dude. She
Love it.
cares. What's crazy is this is actually in the bedroom, okay? So this is the
Really?
closet here. In front of me is the bed. So, I mean, I said, oh man, she made a little shrine for me so I can look at myself every morning.
Jeez.
Well, also,
no, it was a great use
easier.
of space, and she did a bang up job, man. It looks real profesh.
And it makes it a lot easier too, because as soon as you're done, you can hop right in bed.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
as soon as the pod's done, I just go to sleep.
It's a good designer's eye right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She's got it going on, and we saved the tree. So
a little bit of greenery in there. I've got too much not much going on here.
Is the one your grandma gave you around, Owen?
Oh, the original poster.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Remember that one time we were talking about your grandma and it fell on you? Remember that episode? Your grandma.
Yeah, I still have that poster, but it's huge. It's like, it's a huge poster.
One time we were talking about her and the thing fell down. You remember that?
Jed, listen, man, I'm probably the worst hoarder when it comes to sports memorabilia. It's none of it's really out, but my grandmothers, they made legit the baddest scrapbooks in the world for me. Like, they saved every clip.
That's awesome.
And put together a bunch of stuff. And I have a ton of that stuff and I love it. I just, I'm sure like you, Jed, you're just like, where do I put this stuff? And I feel bad getting rid of it, because I'm like, man, there was so many great memories with this stuff. So a lot of it's in boxes and stuff, but it's been cool that she's been able to kind of make something pretty neat out of it and presentable. So, I love all that memorabilia stuff. It's just, you got to have space if you really want to put it on display.
Most of my stuff, Owen, to be honest with you, it's in my parents' house. It means a lot more to my mom than it does to me. I mean, what means that?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
The memories are what kick ass, right? It's like, and so like the trophies and the Kennedy Award, the Hardman. I always told her, I was like, hey, you take that Hardman to eternity if you want to, or that Kennedy Award to eternity if you choose. That's what am I going to do with it? It's great to win it, but yeah, it's better served sitting over there in her house. But I understand. But that's a cool setup you got going there. She did a really nice job with that, man. She did a really nice job with that.
Yeah, right before the season, so now we're all ready to rock and roll, and we're going to go to a break.
Yeah, new season, new look.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's right. New season, new look.
Yeah. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and get to a break really quick, and on the other side, we're going to talk about fall camp opening up in Rich Rod 2.0 in Morgantown, and we'll be back right after this on ITG.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
At Coyote, we're going to treat you like dirt because we hold dirt in the highest regard. We're honored to find it under our fingernails. It keeps us humble, honest. If you know us, you know getting treated like dirt means getting treated with respect. Coyote, we dig dirt.
Now at Johnston Equipment, get 0% financing or a free loader with low-rate financing on select Coyote models in stock.
Come check out our new Coyotes at Johnston Equipment.
You are back in the gun. It is Schuyler Callihan, Jed Drenning, Owen Schmitt. We're going to talk the start of WVU football fall camp. And before we do, another shout out to our friends at Fortis for Root Performance and Financial Certainty Guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. It's Christmas in July, sort of, right? I mean, I know it's only a day or two of practice here in July, but we've got a little bit of early start, seems like, compared to most years. But here we go, guys. It's finally here, Rich Rod 2.0.
You're practice in July? You're a camp start in July? I'm sure in the NFL you did, but in college?
I don't know I think it was always like the August 1 deal.
Seems like it. Yeah, same with me. I was trying to remember the same thing.
It always seemed like it was the first Monday of August is what it typically used to be. But a lot of storylines, obviously, with this year's team. A lot of new faces. We've talked about it ad nauseum at this point. 72, 74 new players on the roster this year. So a lot to talk about. Growing. And maybe
Rich is still asking about the portal.
Yeah. Rich Rod said there might be a receiver out there, even though they might be desperate. But gotta love
best kind, you know.
So let's kick it off. Jed, we'll start with you. What some of the big concerns you have are going on to, I guess, into fall camp. Obviously, we could really say every area of the roster because we just don't know at this point. But some of the things that stick out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I position it. Even what we'll discuss, concerns is. I don't want to call it heavy, but of course you have concerns. We don't know anything about anything, right?
Yeah.
So this is more like, what are the things you're most eager to see some answers in regard to throughout the course of camp? Okay,
find some relief,
and and or maybe some things to lean on. And so each of us have come up with our version of a couple or three, or maybe in some cases one kind of expands into two or three. But and I know Owen's going to touch on this to some extent as well. But what I want to see is what you have in Jaheim White. Jaheim White is now, granted, he only has 257 career carries, but what he's done with those 257 career carries, I think he has shown more than enough in terms of how dynamic he can be. And when you look at his skill set and the pedigree of what Rich can do with feature backs and his history, I think it's an incredible match. It's all about staying healthy for Jaheim. So I had a crazy stat that I included in one of those Rich episodes, and this was talking about Pat White, actually. But Jaheim came up. Pat White, when you look at Mountaineers in history with 100 or more career carries, the highest yards per carry average, all right? Pat White is number 3 all time at 6.5 yards a carry. Impressive, because Pat has almost 700 carries. That's crazy. Number 1 is Tavon at like 9.1. All right, which do the math. Most of that came in one game. Outside of that, he was running some gadget plays and jet sweeps for 60 yards. And so it makes sense, right? He only had 110 carries. Well, number 2 was Jaheim White, all time, with 6.6 yards a carry, all time. Every Mountaineer that has ever run the ball more than 100 times, Jaheim is number 2 in his career yards per carry at 6.6. Oh, and you're actually up there at 6.3. You snuck in there, but those 3 big bull runs helped you out, brother. But so we know what we have in Jaheim. My question is, what kind of depth will you find behind Jaheim? And that is an area that even after the spring, we went back into the portal looking once again. So we've had 2 rounds of the portal, first starting in December when Rich first got here. And that's where Ty Edwards came from UNI, the big kid. And then Jalen Knight is a guy that in the second round of the portal additions. So we were still trying to address that room and get that 1-2/3 punch developed post-spring football. And I think Jalen Knighton is a guy, most recently at SMU, previously at Miami, who has a track record of enough production and explosiveness that he is a twitchy handful now. He really is. So I'm really interested to see, when you look at the candidates, and like I said, this will fold into some of what Owen's going to talk about in the run game at large. Knighton is obviously one of the big candidates. So is Ty Edwards. Dior Hubbard is the holdover. He was on the roster last year. He was here through the spring, so he got some quality reps in the spring. Cannon Katzer, a lot of people have talked about him, what he did at the Division II level. He had a cup of coffee with Washington State. He's a West Coast kid before transferring to D2 Ferris State. Helped him win a national title last year. He's a great story. He was really productive.
Phil Steele mentioned him.
So Phil Steele mentioned him. He sure did. That's exactly right. So that's one of the things that I'm interested to see is what kind of depth are you going to find behind Jaheim White? First of all, when you look at the burden that's going to be shared in terms of the total carry output for the offense, how much of that will come from the quarterback? A lot. You just don't know what a lot comes in the form of. I mean, Tyler Huff last year at Jack State carried the football a lot. If you go back through the years, we know the story, we know the names. But here's one of the things about Rich's offense. Sometimes if somebody develops as kind of a 1 and a 2 or a 1A, and I don't even call it a 1B, if you're productive enough and you win that true 2 spot, I mean, you'll get some significant totes. You'll get 7 or 8 carries a week if you're that guy. Now, if you don't separate and you have kind of 2 behind your 1, I mean, you're still going to have a couple guys that are each going to get 3 or 4 carries a week. That's going to happen. And my question is, what kind of production will that yield with the names we just talked about behind a retooled, rebuilt offensive line? That's what I want to see. And then sticking on the offensive side of the football, another thing that certain players on this offense are going to have opportunities to do. When you go out on the perimeter and you look at the X and the Z, the true wideouts in this offense, one of the things I did in one of those episodes about Rich's offense was talk about way back in the day, the prototype skill sets we looked at for each position type. We looked at a certain type of kid at X, a certain type of kid at Z, a certain type of kid at each of the 2 slots. Some of that still holds true, but they're more cross-trained now. But one thing is absolutely certain. With the sheer volume of rush attempts we're going to have and the nature of attacking downhill and running the football, defenses are going to have to commit resources to the box. There's going to be a lot of single coverage opportunities on the perimeter. And if you demonstrate an ability to make plays in single coverage, you will be fed. You absolutely will be fed. So now, if you want to toy with some of the names or some of the candidates there, you would obviously start with Cam Vaughn because of what he did as a freshman last year at Jack State for Rich. Interesting because he plays big, he plays physical, 6'2", buck 86. Even though he's a large framed kid, he wasn't necessarily a quote unquote red zone weapon for Jack State last year. What he was he was a scoring zone weapon. And here's what I mean by that. It seemed so much to me, the more Jack State tape I watched, they weren't really using him inside the 10 on fade routes and single coverage and things like that, your more traditional red zone concepts. He only had 2 red zone catches all year. But what he did have was inside the 35, 17 targets. And that's kind of where he really started to light things up. In other words, they like to give him space to separate, but still opportunity to use his big frame in the scoring zone. So once they got inside the 35, they'd start feeding him. Can he be the guy that's fed here? You got Christian Hamilton coming in who did a lot of things. He was explosive and dynamic as a freshman at UNC. He's more compact, but he plays a strong brand of football. He was a big play kid. 160 yards on just 7 catches last year for UNC. So there's a lot of potential packed in there. Jaden Bray, again, Jaden Bray's issue last year was he just wasn't available. Only played in 5 games, but he's a difference maker when he's around. He had the 2 big catches early in the year. Each for 44 yards. That's the type of thing he did when he was healthy at Oklahoma State. His last year at Oklahoma State, when he was healthy in 23, he had 30 catches, almost 400 yards. And the biggest thing was he had a ton of contested catches.
Yeah.
He wins those 50-50 balls. So again, if you demonstrate an ability to do that with Rich's offense, as much as defense are going to be focused on defending the run and committing resources downhill and outnumbering you between the tackles, you're going to have some opportunities on the perimeter. Can one of these guys step up? You have Logan Ramper. He's a small school kid that's transferring in, but here's the one. This is, to me, put an asterisk next to this kid's name. Pay attention, Mountaineer fans. Remember the name Justin Smith-Brown. because I think there's something about this kid. Again, he's playing on the perimeter. He's 5'11", buck 84, small school kid at South Carolina State. I watched his South Carolina State tape. He was productive. There's just something about him. There's something about Justin Smith Brown. So don't let it sneak up on you if the next thing you know, he's making a few plays for the Mountaineers. So might he bring something on the perimeter? And then you have the steady presence of guys like Preston Fox, who's been there, done that. The old grizzled veteran Jarrell Williams has been around. Jordan McCants comes up knowing the system. So those are your candidates on the perimeter. So that's the other thing I want to know. I have one more. We'll double back, but I want to go to Owen now and have him kind of pitch in on the run game that he wanted to talk about, because I talked about the depth, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. I talked about the receivers on the perimeter, Owen. I talked about what I'm looking for at depth at running back behind Jaheim. What say you about West Virginia and this new look run game with Coach Rod?
Yeah, obviously, if you've seen any pictures of Jaheim lately on the internet, it looks like he's put in some work this offseason, which is great. I'm sure he was slightly on the fence about coming back. Obviously, all his cronies kind of like dipped out and went other places. So I'm sure that was a difficult decision for him. And I know, talking to some of the staff early on, he just quite wasn't there as far as buying in to the whole Rich Rod era thing. But I think he really has, and he's embraced it. Um, if there was a piece of advice I could give him right now, uh, brother, I'm not going to say it's a foolproof system, but it's a system that works, and it works with, honestly, it's a plug and play system. It doesn't really matter who you have back there, and I'm not discrediting anybody's talent. Obviously, you have talent, you're going to shine in this offense. But as far as the run game goes, if you put in the hard work, you're going to make some things happen. So for me, kind of like what you said, Jed, has to stay healthy. He's going to have a considerable amount of load with more reps than he has ever. He's going to be kind of the guy we lean on. And obviously depth is an issue in the backfield. Lineman wise, we got all these new guys. How well are they going to be able to mesh this year and really get that run game dialed in? Because really, backs are one thing, but it all happens up front. So, you know, how well are these guys? And here's the thing too. This is the zone run scheme is a great is a it's an NFL run scheme, right? They're running it in the NFL, and are these guys going to be up to speed on day one when we take the field here in coming up for this year? But are they going to be ready? Are those 6 in steps? I think every time I think of Zone Rud, I think of Howard Mudd. Obviously, I think of Coach Trickett. Great story. Hey, actually, Coach Trickett just called me. I want to say last week, and we BS'd for a while. He wanted McAfee's number, so I gave it to him. But I always think of, really, when I got to West Virginia and seeing how the O-line developed, their progressions through the run game. And it was so much based off of first step. It was almost like so redundant, like you'd get tired of hearing him say it. But it's so imperative, that first 6-inch step, just making sure these guys are really getting the technique down. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're a bunch of smart guys. I'm sure they're a bunch of athletic guys that can get it done. But, it's all new. It's all new. So really making sure, for me, the issue would be, are the linemen gelling, right? Are they understanding? This system, in my opinion, is it's not very complex, right? It's not. Rich makes the system very easy. In my theory on kind of his coaching style is, look, I want talent, and I want talent to I want talent to react. I don't want talent to think, right? I want to make it simple. I want to make it fast. So hopefully, my big issue obviously with the line is making sure they're gelling right, getting their calls. Obviously the
But look at
game's
some of the
evolved
names.
20 years since I've been playing, so I know it's changed up and stuff like that. And then I think
The
the
names, Owen.
next, huh?
You want to start with some of the names? You got, and I think you just hit on something critical. Okay, at tackle, you got candidates. You got a little more depth than you did in the spring. You got an incredibly athletic guy like Nick Cray. He's very athletic. That's always been his thing. It's just could things slow down for him enough? That was always the question with Nick Cray. Tykees Crawford, a guy that brings versatility. He's played in the SEC. He's played multiple positions. Xavier Bosley's played in this system for Rich. Mikel Clay, Donovan Haslam. You got names, and then when you move to the interior, Walter Youngbear. They like what they see there. There's some surprising athleticism there. Chemo transfers in. He was a two-way guy at LSU, athletic. Agbo, Cooper Young. I mean, there's a deeper list of names that I'm looking at now than there was, and all the way into the center spot, Landon Livingston, like what they see there. You got some nasty guys like Carson Lee, Robbie Martin is part of the mix. But Owen, you just hit on something very critical. Yes, it's simple, but yes, it's about developing and forging relationships. And for those listening or watching, let's walk them through what we mean by that, Owen. You're going to have situations where literally on the offensive line in this system, zone blocking, it's so predicated on that. There's some gap scheme involved, of course, as well. And he's done more of it at different stops than others, but it's heavily predicated on zone schemes. And what that comes down to is the guy lining up next to you, whether it's a center lined up next to a guard or a tackle lined up next to a guard or a guard next to a tackle, you're often going to be double teaming somebody on the first level across the defensive line. And then what you're going to do off that double team, let's say it's a center and a guard double teaming the nose of the tackle, right? Defensive on the defensive line. Once you secure who you're double teaming, you have to pick the perfect time and spot to disengage, climb to the second level, and then neutralize the backer. Well, that all comes with timing. Sometimes if you lead prematurely and that defensive lineman isn't secured, now he shakes free and makes a play. Or sometimes if you wait too long to make sure that defensive lineman's secured, now you don't reach the backer in time and he scrapes and makes the play. So think of how much repetition it does take, and they've been working towards this with this since the spring, working towards this. These combination blocks, when you're zone blocking across the board, you've got to understand the shorthand body language of the guy next to you. You have to rep that out. It's like the relationship with a quarterback and a receiver. It's very similar to that. You better understand the body language and the feel and vibe of that guy next to you so you know and you understand when do I disengage? When do I climb? Hey, I better stay an extra beat. He needs the help. That doesn't just happen overnight. There's a reason that it didn't happen in the spring, right? Oh, and you got to rep that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really a feel thing, you know what I mean? And I feel what we're on the same page, Jed, right? It's a feel thing, it's a rep thing. It's something that you're going to naturally start feeling comfortable with over time. It's just, in my opinion, have we gotten enough reps? Will we get enough reps in August? You know what I mean? In training camp when, really for Rich and them, nothing's set in stone. I mean, there might be guys they might have a depth chart. You know what I mean? But it's going to change. You know what I mean? It's going to change. I feel like we have 10 quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's pretty close. So those are just concerns of mine because this is a new age thing. I get it. I played 20 years ago. I guess this is just how it goes. Hey, you get dumped, you find another girlfriend, whatever. I guess that's how, it is what it is. But those are the concerns. I just want to make sure that, and I know, those are my concerns, but I also know Rich is going to make sure that these guys get plenty of reps. It's just at game one, I feel like the progression of the season and how it's been scheduled out really kind of helps us in this first year just because there is going to be some inconsistencies just because of lack of time, right?
Yeah.
Trying to build a winning program literally in a matter of a few months. That's my concern. Obviously, depth at running back as well. Getting the ever essence flow of the zone scheme, and then
Pro and a
my
con.
huh.
There's a pro and there's a con. Let me give you a pro and let me give you a con with what we're talking
Okay.
about here. Here's the con. We have 70 some new kids. None of these kids have played together.
Yeah.
Compared to last year, at Jack State, he had 60 some new kids, but at least up front at the point of attack, Trickett was back. He had a couple of holdovers from that offensive line. He wasn't starting from scratch, right? That's the con. You have a new O-line coach and Coach McNell, who he worked with a handful of years ago at Ole Miss.
Hey,
So Coach McNell knows the system, but you
which
have
I
new
want to say
guys
this too.
across the board. Yeah.
Hey, he's a hell of an O-line coach. I'm not discrediting
Yeah.
him at all. It's more of just
no,
for
I get
me.
what you're saying.
Yeah, it's
I
more
get
of
what you're
just,
saying.
yeah.
So that's the con. Now here's the pro. Rich went through all this last year with 60 some new kids and ended up winning Conference USA despite an 0-3 start. So he recognizes, look, I might have figured it out ultimately, but I can't start off like I did last year. So I better come up with a more efficient way through camp to distribute these reps and maximize what I got to do right out of the gate in week one, because I can't afford the type of start that we had at Jack State last year. So there's the pro. There's a pro and there's a con. So Rich is a smarter, wiser coach than he was a year ago because of that start. He said, I came out of camp at Jack State thinking we had a great camp. He said, well, obviously I had to learn from that because we started 0-3. Now, part of that was the schedule. Coastal wasn't a layup. They weren't going to beat Louisville, but they didn't play well those first 3 weeks. That's the larger point. And then they got it together once they settled on a quarterback position, and a lot of other things came together. But now he's approaching this saying, all right, yeah, we got it figured out, but now I got to change the timetable. I can't afford to get it out by week 4. I got to figure it out by week 1, So that's the pro. You know what I'm saying?
And that's one of the reasons that he's taking a different approach to this quarterback thing, because he didn't know about Tyler Huff and what he could actually do until he went live. And that's what he talked about day one of his press conference. He even brought up Pat White and the Adam Bednarik situation. He said, "Do we know what we really had in Pat White? Probably not, because he wasn't live." So that's the biggest change that I think he's going to make this year. He said something about they're going to go live. I don't know how many times exactly, at least twice, I think is what he said, with the quarterbacks here soon. I'm not exactly sure how many times that will be, but
there'll be some eval with that. There absolutely will be.
They're going to start out with 5. So this is where I'm going to start here with the quarterbacks. They're going to start out with 5. You obviously have Nico and Jalen Henderson. Max Brown, the Charlotte transfer, who Jed has talked about a couple of times here. Don't sleep on him. He was in a bad offensive system, and I can promise you I 100% agree with that. That team was a mess last year. I've watched a couple of their games last year, and it was a mess. Played at Florida a little bit, so he's got some starts under his belt.
It better serves you to watch his Florida tape. It really does.
He started against, what was it, Florida State at the end of the season?
Florida State, yeah.
And he's played well. And Jalen Henderson, too, I know a lot of people just look at the stats and like, whatever. He was playing pretty well for A&M toward the end of that season 2 years ago. He goes into the bowl game. I think it was the first play of the from scrimmage in that Texas Bowl where he got hurt. And then 2024, new head coach comes in. Mike Elko was recovering. So there was reasons why he wasn't the starting quarterback last year at A&M. He's someone you got to watch. The 2 young guys, Khalil Wilkins, Scotty Fox, could they be a factor? Maybe. I don't want to rule anything out with Rich, but the math tells me it's probably going to be the 3 veterans. At some point, he's going to have to shrink that competition down, get it down to 3, down to 2, and hopefully have a starter by week 1. But as he talked about on the show, we asked him straight on, do you have to have a starter week 1? He's like, I don't really have to say anything. Why do I need to tell anybody? And that's the ideal world, because Robert Morris, you should be playing 2-3 quarterbacks anyway. Ohio, it would be even better if you had played multiple quarterbacks in that game for a good cause, not because you can't find answers, but that way you go into week 3 maybe having pick guessing. So that's going to be an interesting thing, how this all kind of unfolds. Jed, you've been a part of these things before, especially in this system. Where do you think he's going to start to draw the line and say, okay, we really got to start cutting down our options here?
Cutting them down to what?
2.
Let me qualify first
3.
before I answer. 3?
2 or 3. I would say 3 probably be within the first week or 2, right?
Week or 2, yeah. In other words, here's the way you got to approach this. You got 2 really talented kids in Scotty Fox and Khalil Wilkins that have a ton of upside, now, one of them to stay alive in it is going to have to stay alive for a reason. So it's incumbent upon them to show you something in the first week or 2 that you're like, oh, man, I thought I'd be able to kind of put him on the growth pattern and just take my time with him. But now he's in the mix. I mean, if that's incumbent upon them, maybe even more so than the veterans. Okay. They're both talented, but that's a tough road to hoe. Now, they've both been here. They were both here in the spring. Khalil was banged up. He wasn't healthy. Scotty was playing. He played well in the spring game. A lot of upside there, but they're going to have to play their way in to continue to be part of it, obviously. But I think both of them have bright futures. Now, when you look at the other 3, one of the things I did this off season, and again, you just have so many hours in the day. I would love to put together some episodes breaking down the things that I saw on tape, because I have a library of plays that I selected from what Max did, from what Jalen did, from what Nico did, and a library of things Rich does offensively. I have this in a folder on my desktop. I don't have time to put that together in video form. I'd love to share it with the world and say, hey, here's what Nico can do well that Rich likes. Here's what Jalen can do well. Here's what Max can do well. And Mountaineer fans are obviously more familiar with Nico, and there is a ton of stuff that Rich's offense calls for that Nico is very, very good at. And I think there's some parallels there with the between the tackles nature of the running style. I think that Nico runs kind of like Tyler Huff, maybe with not quite as much burst, but he runs a lot like him. He's a big, strong, physical kid. He plays like his size. He plays like his size.
I want to say, what game was that last year where he straight up
Okie State, right?
Yeah, dude.
Against the leading tackler in the country.
I mean, you talk about a
tackler in the country.
When your quarterback's running over a guy like that, I mean, oh man, that gets you juiced up as a team, man.
Yeah, that wasn't Joe Schleppe. That was the leading tackler in the country that he did that to. Yeah. And so, I mean, I could walk you through a lot of things. Again, I pulled out some clips of what Nico does, some concepts that Rich likes to do in the pass game, some concepts that Rich likes to deploy in the run game, and some things Nico fits very well. And now Jalen Henderson, I studied extensively what he did at A&M. And I mean, there were times that Jalen Henderson had the wow factor. I mean, there were some maybe just sort of breathtaking plays that he made at A&M. I mean, a lot of it was off schedule, but there were also times that he demonstrated the patience necessary to a 3rd and long. You see him sometimes convert on his checkdowns because he recognized, hey, I'm going to stick to my progressions. I'm going to do it. I'm going to drop down, hit the crosser. The next thing you know, a 3rd and 11, he's moving the sticks against LSU. So you'd see him do some of that. But I mean, I know there's an element of consistency with Nico. Now, I saw that throughout the course of the spring. With Jalen, there's an element of there's a pop to it, And I'm not saying one only has pop and one only has consistency. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. But those are the greater strengths, I think, from the outside looking in with both of them, from what I've seen. They both bring a ton to the table. And then again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Max Brown is just a scrapper. He is a scrapper. It's fun to watch him when he was at Florida. It's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, he's making some incredibly accurate throws under duress against big-time competition. We talked about the ecosystem of that offense that he was in at Charlotte. It was just wretched. Tough to get any kind of read on that. But those 3, I think, are guys that you can find ways within the system to win football games with. Again, I literally have a folder populated with probably 50 clips divided among the 3 quarterbacks and Rich's system. And if the off season was a month longer, I'd probably put together something showing some of the things they're really good at, each of them. And the beautiful part of it is, guys, there's a lot that each of them are pretty good at that Rich likes to do. A lot. So, I mean, this is going to be, yes, who's most productive, but also who's not counterproductive. So those are the 2 things that are going to bake into this. I mean, yeah, you chart everything through camp, and there's a reason that you want to go live with these quarterbacks because, I mean, even I used to get frustrated, and who am I? But believe it or not, there were even times that I could shake free of a linebacker that got a hand on me in the pocket, Owen, right? So I can't imagine being Nico or Jalen or Max Brown with that kind of skill set, being those dynamic athletes and the whistle blows, and you're like, dude, there's no way if these bullets are really flying between the lines, you bring me down there. There's no way. And when you go live, that's what you find out. The guys that can do those types of things and extend those plays that you didn't afford them the opportunity to extend, that's one of the areas Rich has grown.
And who can stand in the pocket,
and you know what?
take the hit,
if
and
Tyler
make the throw.
Huff starts game 1 last year, they play a lot different offensive brand of football. But he didn't really start until week 4 or so, worked his way in part because Rich said it. We didn't go live enough in camp because he was a 2. I didn't want to risk my 2. Well, guess what? Had you risked him a little more than you did, you'd have found out. And that's what he's now saying. These are the ways that I've learned from last year. So it's going to be a live battle. It's going to be a fun battle. All 3 kids can be productive in their own way. First, who's going to be most productive? But just as critical to that, who's not going to be counterproductive? You can't be putting the football in harm's way. The way Rich views this, the way most coaches view this, there's too great a premium now more than ever on possessions. So you got to protect the football. You can't be put in harm's way. He will not let you turn the football over and be silly with it. And that's one of the things. You got to make some plays, and you got to direct the offense. You got to push in the best position to succeed. But you can't be counterproductive. You can't get us in bad spots with the football. So who's going to protect the football and who's going to be productive? It kind of comes down to that. And we're going to find out here in the coming weeks. Nobody's going to find out publicly. I promise you. I promise you. Robert Morris ain't no way. Why would he ever do that? Why?
And like I said, from that, you know? Ideally, you play 2-3 quarterbacks in that first game. They all get equal reps, and you have Ohio kind of thinking, like, what the hell are they going to do in week 2? It doesn't just because the first quarterback went out there doesn't mean he could be the guy. I mean,
I wouldn't mind if you played 3 in the first series.
Yeah,
I don't care. You know, it's
go
if 3
for
of them earned it.
Make
Play
it
3 in the
chaotic.
first series. You know,
yeah, I love it.
It's kind of like I'm done playing, so I hated looking over my shoulder. These guys want to look over Richie's shoulder. Trust me, I've said before. I turned the ball over 6 times in one game one time, and he still didn't pull me. You know, so if you're not going to pull me at that point, look, you're going to have a pretty compelling reason to pull somebody when you do. But yeah, as long as they produce, he'll find a spot for him. And they'll contribute. But it's going to be an interesting battle. It's going to be an interesting battle. I mean, I've always, since Nico got here, been a Nico guy. I always understood the value that Nico Marchiol brings to that locker room. He has that it factor that the kids in the locker room respond to. And you started to see some of that with Jalen Henderson. You really did. Now, Max Brown, he was trying to fit in with those other 2. But I would say he was asked to probably overcome a little more in the spring and seemed to manage to do so. Now, a lot of people came out of the spring beating their chest about Max Brown, right?
Yeah.
And why were they doing so? He was the only one that was live.
Exactly.
The other 2 weren't live, right? So it's a nice problem to have when you got these 2 incredibly talented young guys. Never say never. Who knows what they might do the first couple weeks to stay in it. And then you got these 3 battle-tested kind of guys who've been through it at different levels in different spots at high-level competition and proven and demonstrated they could do it. So there is no answer quite yet. But, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be people trying to get clicks and trying to do this. And I'll say this right now as somebody who can tell you this. If you are out there saying, I don't care what they say, this guy's the starter, you are guessing. Okay.
Yep.
That's all you're doing. You might guess right. Congratulations if you do. But trust me when I say, if you're calling the starter right now, you are guessing. That's all you're doing because the staff has not decided, period.
Yeah. They'd be silly to not leave this as an open competition. I mean, you got 5 talented quarterbacks in that room, probably going to come down to 3 like we've mentioned, but you got to leave it out. I mean, who knows? I mean, you might have Scotty Fox might be the next coming of Lamar Jackson. Like, I mean,
Yes.
you have no idea what these kids are potentially.
And Schuyler, I've been part of a camp quarterback battle with Rich. I've been right there. I had to win the job. When I transferred in, the incumbent at Glenville was Mike Keller, right? Now, there was some crazy things going on at that juncture. Rich was running the Florida State Multiple I his first year at Glenville. I ran the Florida State Multiple I playing for Terry at Sanford and Jimbo, right? So I knew that offense. A big part of the reason I transferred to Glenville is because I knew the Florida State Multiple I. a week before camp starts, Dean Hood tells me, "Hey, did you meet our new coordinator? We're putting in the run and shoot." I was like, "We're doing what?" Oh, that's mattered in hell, right? So now the upside to it was Keller and I had to learn it together and go through experience those growing pains together. But Mike Keller and I, Rich had to log every rep. I mean, it was a heated, because Mike Keller is an incredibly intelligent football player and great football coach, head coach at Glenville State, very smart football mind. And that's who I had to find a way to beat out, step into camp with every rep that mattered, every live rep, every Skelly rep. It could be every 9-on-7 rep. Rich was evaluating every step of the process. And it literally came up to the night before the opener. I remember we opened at Geneva College up in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, and we were leaving on Friday. Rich called me and Keller into his office Thursday night and told us who was starting.
Damn.
At the end, camp was way in the rear view. And we didn't know. Me and Mike honestly didn't know. It was that tight. It was that tight. So I've been through this experience with Rich, and trust me, nothing's lost on his eye during these evaluation processes.
No, not at all.
And he's so good,
field,
man.
Off the field, everything.
He's so good. The cream will rise to the top. I mean, there's nothing more truer than with Rich about things like that. He's going to breed competition, and if you want to play, you will be competitive. So, I mean, and when you have a bunch of talent like that in a room, you're going to see some things you didn't know people could do ever on the ball field. So it's going to be exciting
so close.
What happens.
To this day, I don't know why. I've never asked him. I don't know why he chose me over Keller. It was that close.
Wow.
But I'm telling you, he was evaluating us in the cafeteria, in the meetings, off the field, screwing around with the teammates, everything. I promise you, every bit of that weighed in, every bit of that. And I still don't know why. I mean, if he would have gone with Mike Keller,
Jed, hold up.
Tip my cap and said, absolutely.
Were you a single ply guy?
Schuyler doesn't know what we're talking about. Schuyler knows what we're talking about.
If you were a single ply guy, you might have won just on that one aspect.
Just on that. Schuyler, what to tell you off the air sometime, or maybe even on the air. One of Rich's favorite camp stories that he always tells about.
I think I've actually heard this one before. So maybe not, but I think I have. So that's why.
That's for another day. But yeah.
But before we wrap up, I do want to touch on two other things really quick. Obviously, there's eligibility situation kind of going on with 4 of the players on the roster. Rich talked about it very briefly in his press conference on Wednesday and was just like, yeah, it's very frustrating. The NCAA, ironically, Cortez Bram, who was just here not very long ago, 2 years ago, he just received a preliminary injunction to get another year of eligibility. He's going to be making his decision. I think it's between UCLA, Virginia, and Memphis or something like that. But he's getting an extra year. A lot of other kids in those guys' situations are getting an extra year. So in some way, it makes you feel a little bit better, gives you a little bit of optimism. But at the same time, guys, it's the end of July. We're already 1 practice in the books. You're taking these moments away and these opportunities away from these kids when we've had all summer long to get these decisions made and these rulings made. And it's not just these 4 kids. We're talking about making life harder on the coaching staff, making life harder on the rest of the team, because when they do get integrated in, if they do get cleared, then it's going to kind of retool some things in terms of who gets what type of reps, what type of packages they're put in. So it's a dysfunctional mess that the NCAA has had way too long to figure out and haven't. But that's the NCAA for
you. And they wonder why their power dissipates more by the day.
Exactly.
I mean, these are the types of things, if you can't handle what little is left for you to handle like this. I know there's a lot of these cases. I get it. I understand it. But there's also a lot of time to evaluate these cases, and this should take priority. You're impacting kids' lives by impacting your eligibility. You talked about the domino effect that's downstream with all the other kids and the staff and the impact here. I mean, potentially throughout the course, when you look at all the teams in the country, there's some kids that otherwise their portal situation might change because of what happens with some of these kids. So you just don't know, and it's frustrating. It really is. You'd love to have the answers by now, but you don't. And it's just one more thing that needs to be fixed in this long list of things it's shrinking because the NCAA has less power and they've kind of been neutered and defanged. But with what power you do have left, they kind of remind me of Frank Burns when Colonel Potter leaves camp to go to Seoul, right, on MASH. They beat their chest, they exert that power. It's frustrating. There should be answers. There already should be answers. They shouldn't just be imminent. They should already be here.
And there's one key player, obviously, of those four that if this goes into my final point here, if he is not cleared, then all of a sudden you kind of have a little bit of a concern with the pass rush. The next three guys, or I guess the other three that you would put together, they have combined for 10.5 sacks in their career, all of which are in their final year of eligibility. So where does the pass rush come from if that particular player is not eligible? I really don't know. But the good thing is Zach Alley knows how to figure it out, right? He's aggressive as can be.
Yeah.
And go watch Jed's 2 episodes on him because he's going to find a way to dial up the pressure from every which angle. Exotic looks, pre-snap movement. And Jed, that's one of the fun things I thought that I kind of noticed. I haven't watched as clearly as enough of a film as you have with Zach Alley, but watching the pre-snap movement is something that's a little bit different that I noticed right away. It's a little bit more often than maybe what Jordan Leslie did or what Vic Koenig did. At least that was to me. That was something that they changed the picture right before the ball was snapped in some of those Oklahoma games last year, and I thought it was something that really threw off quarterbacks. So finding a way to get pressure on the quarterback is going to be paramount.
And that's something he consistently found a way to do. He kind of, as Rick Neuheisel likes to call it, he NASA's that thing. He Apollo 13's that thing. Whatever's in that box, he's going to use what's in that box to find a way to get those guys home from the moon. And that's what he does with his pass rush. Whatever pieces he has in that box on the table, those are the pieces he will find a way, whether it's from an odd front, whether it's from an even front. He gets so creative. I've said this before on here. A buddy of mine was a student assistant under him at Monroe when Terry first hired him as his first D coordinator job. And he said the first thing Zach would ask for on Sunday when they were doing game prep, he said, look, I need their personnel tendencies. I need all of them, the longest list you can come up with. I don't care if it's Hammurabi code size. I want the longest list you can come up with every personnel tendency they have. And so he said, I would give it to him. And it would be in this long formatted list. And he'd put it on his iPad or on his phone, wherever he did with it. And he said he would put his headsets on and he'd get on the treadmill and he would memorize it. And in 2 hours, that's how he started his week, was memorizing the personnel tendencies for the other team. Then he would go into his week after he did that. He started with that. And I talked about this in the episode, in the Zach episode, but there's things I left out. There was just too much. It's like he started the game. Ultimately, they lost the game. Texas was just too much. They had the horses, and Texas won the game big. But the reason Oklahoma had a puncher's chance in Red River last year was because they got out to a great start and pitched a shutout in the first quarter. And I'm telling you, they didn't just have Quinn Ewers confused. I think they had Sark a little bit out of sorts there for the first quarter because they showed some things early in that game, kind of from a more true odd stack look and odd stack personnel that they hadn't demonstrated in recent weeks. And Owen, he did this one. I didn't show it in the show. I thought about throwing it in somewhere and maybe using it, but I didn't. And I'm gonna have to show you this at some point. He rolled to two. He rolled to two high, cover two look in a way that I've never seen somebody roll to two. And I'm telling you right now, there's no way Quinn Ewers could have looked at that and on any level thought, okay, well, yeah, he's presenting in this, but it's going to end up in cover two. There's no way he could have guessed that. There's no way. And they did. When the ball was snapped, boom, they exploded and burst into two. And I'm like, I've never seen that, right? So he's constantly doing these types of things. And that's one of the things I'm excited to see. But what it's going to take, and look, the X's and O's only carry you so far. At some point, and it's going to take some alphas. And this is the last thing that I'm talking about. I want to see sorted out through camp. We have hundreds of things we want to see, but we picked some of our favorites, right? Defensively, who will be the alphas? Because at every stop, he's obviously had them. Rich has had them. You go back to Scooby Wright, consensus All-American at Arizona. He's always had them. Grant Wiley at West Virginia, right? But so Zach Alley. I mean, Danny Stutzman at Oklahoma last year, the things that he did with him. Billy Bowman on the back end at Oklahoma last year. Even if you go back to Jack State, Chris Hardy, some of the things he did with him. I mean, they had some guys that were their alphas defensively. And you have to ask yourself, okay, there are candidates, but who on this defense, this new look, reinvented defense, is going to step up and do that? Now, I would almost assume Fred Perry, all things start and end with Fred Perry. Who's going to be that heavy nickel? Okay. Fred Perry is a dog. He's a dog among dogs. And you might think, yeah, but he was a G5 player.
No.
Look, go break down the South Carolina tape and then come back and tell me
he was a Power
player.
4 player playing in the G5.
Okay, yeah. Go break down the South Carolina tape at Williams-Brice Stadium against Spencer Rattler 2 years ago and come back and tell me Fred Perry is a G5 player. No. He's a dog. At any level, he's a dog, okay? So I wouldn't even consider him a candidate. I mean, he's more than the leader in the clubhouse. I would almost assume he's going to step out there and be that guy. Okay. But beyond that, I'm looking at guys maybe, and there's a lot of things that go into this. And if you're not around for every rep and every conversation in the locker room, that's where a lot of these things are fostered, right, Owen? But I'm going to look at guys like I like Braden Siders. I really like what Jeff Castile's doing in that bandit room. There's still some questions to be answered in terms of who's going to be there populating that room, but I like that room. Curtis Jones, I think it's a terrific addition to that room. I think he's a great fit. Braden Siders is a guy who's just always been productive. I mean, when you look at his numbers, he's just been steady Eddie. This model of consistency. When you see what he did at Wyoming, 7 sacks, 3 sacks, 3.5 sacks, just he always shows up and plays a high brand of football. He's a guy that you can depend on, and I want to see what he does within the system for Zach Howell. In other words, there's guys that played that role at Jack State and Oklahoma. I want to see if he can play that role. And another guy, this is a guy we didn't get to see in the spring because he was dinged up as well. I'm excited about Chase Wilson.
Yeah.
I think Chase Wilson is a dog. I mean, I really do. This is a guy with 234 career tackles at Colorado State. He's always around the football. And he's another guy that you're thinking, yeah, Colorado State, what kind of G5 competition? Look, Owen was talking about the cream rising to the top. When they played Colorado against these D1 schools, that's when he played his best football. Washington State, 12 total tackles, 8 tackles against Colorado. He had a TFL and a half in the Wazoo game. But so he kind of swells up as the competition increases as well. So I'm excited about Chase Wilson. Those are just a couple names that come to mind. But I'm not in that locker room every day for every rep, every conversation, everything between the lines and outside the lines. I see more between the lines, right? So I'm eager to see who steps up and fills that role because, Owen, I just don't know of not just a great defense, but an above average or exceptional defense that reaches that stratosphere without having 2 or 3 just true alpha dogs, right?
Oh, dude, I mean, if we ain't got dogs, we ain't got a team. We got to have them.
Yeah, no puppies.
Gotta have them.
Can't have no puppies around here.
You can't.
Hey, you remember defensively,
and that's one thing
when you look
too,
at your defenses.
Dude, tough guys. All tough guys.
Yeah. I mean, Reed on down the line, right? McGrow,
That's what I'm saying. Like, you had a bunch of tough guys. And here's another thing I try to explain to, basic X's and O's to fans that ask me, hey, how do you think that, this year is going to go, whatever. You're physically going to be able to see with your own 2 eyes that this team will be the most conditioned on the field, and they will play till the whistle blows. They will squeeze every ounce out of that towel that they get time on the field. So and then now you train all these dogs, all right? Hey, when I say sick them, okay, you only quit when the whistle blows. All right, other than that, it's fair game. That ball moves, it's sick them. So, and then plus, like, look, it's been a great discussion about Zach. He is such an evolution of what we've come to kind of know just from our, at least my years with Castile and Tony. So it's going to be fun to see how they really get. And I love that about Zach. I mean, if there's anything you want to know before going into the week, it is the personnel. Where is the weak links? What are we going to expose? All right, now how do we get our guys there? How do we run the same blitz 11 different ways? Right? How do
Yeah.
we get every different guy that, you know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a fun thing, and I'm telling you, it's time to crank it up, man. The dog's got to show out.
Yeah, Chase
Zach is
Wilson was the first person that came to mind outside of Fred Perry for me. Because
there you go.
my gosh, like you flick on his highlights, he plays fast. He plays 100 miles an hour. And the other thing too that I love about him and Fred Perry, by the way, they both like to talk that junk. They'll let you know when they make a play.
Hey, I got a challenge. I got a challenge for all y'all. Win your fucking one-on-ones. Be as physical as you fucking can for 60 fucking minutes. Yeah. 60 minutes of fucking focus. Yeah. We will mollywop these motherfuckers. Yeah. Y'all hear me? Yeah. Rock out on 2, 1, 2.
As Rich likes to call it, they'll put their face in the fan. I mean, those are the, and so's Braden Siders, and I'm sure there are others on this defense that. But I would also encourage people. I gave a shout out in both those Zach Alley episodes to this OU Daily article that was written that did a great job of breaking down. It was when Zach was hired at Oklahoma a year ago. A lot of stories about him and his dad, and it's very telling about the type of guy that Zach is, just how detail oriented and how he remembers things from years past. It was just this nondescript play call that they made at Clemson that he brings back up to end the game in overtime 7 years later at Jack State, and it's kind of a Sean McVay quality that he has. But this is in the show if you want to go watch it. But his dad asked him when Zach was a special teams coordinator 1 year, okay, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year only. He was co-special teams coordinator at Boise State, and all he did was win Football Talk special teams coordinator of the year in that 1 year, right? But his dad asked him before they were playing Colorado State, and I got to think about it. I bet you Chase would have been on that team because this is 2020, right? I have to look at that. Might have been Chase.
Maybe.
But anyway, his dad asked him, "Hey, what should I watch? What should I watch for from the stands in this game?" And he said, "Hey, I'm glad you asked. Their long snapper, the first time they snap the ball, it spins 1 yard to 1.5 yards to the right." He said, "I'm going to put an overload with 2 extra backers there, and we're going to block a punt." Guys, 52 seconds into the game, they blocked the punt for a touchdown, and it was the first of 3 kicks they blocked for touchdowns that day. This is Zach Alley. This is what I talk about. I show you the play in the episode of Zach Alley. This is what you're getting. But I'm telling you, my guy that I talked to give you some frame of reference, this is a guy that was a student assistant. His dad played for Rich, too. I first met Rich through his dad when Rich was 23. His dad played for Rich at Salem, Eric Allcar, right? So anyway, his son Chase Allcar wanted to get into coaching. So we called Dusty out of Arizona and said, "Hey, Chase wants to work. Eric's boy." He said, "Yeah, it's free help. We're looking for free help." So he ends up out of Arizona with Rich, right? So that's when he first meets Rich. Next thing you know, years later, fast forward, he's at Monroe with Rich, and here comes Zach Alley to Monroe. Well, he's Zach Alley's student assistant, and he's prepping for Zach. Like they had a game last year. It might have been before Zach played Auburn at Oklahoma. And he said, Zach called me and said, "Hey, you still got that breakdown on the such and such we did 6 years ago?" And he said, "Yeah, actually I do." He said, "Email that to me. I need it this week." But because it was something Auburn was doing that they'd seen 6 years earlier. And that's just what Zach does. That's what he does. It's, it's just
nothing against any of the transfers that came in this offseason, the 72 or 74 of them, how many ever there is. Zach Alley was the biggest pickup of the offseason.
Biggest acquisition, yeah.
Not even
biggest
close,
acquisition. But I've been warned. This is the last thing I'll say about Fred Perry. When I first met Fred Perry, I want to say it was it still December? It might have been December.
Yeah, it would have been December or January. Or
it was in Morgantown.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was December because we were back in the bowl game with that. And I was in Dusty's office, and Fred comes in, and they're doing paperwork and getting some stuff filled out for registration and all this. And Dusty said, "Jed, I want you to meet this guy. Remember him, because before the season's over, he will hit you where you stand on the sidelines. It's going to happen. Mark my words." Yeah. He's a missile that doesn't stop flying around. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, he plays like a torpedo back there. He's a lot of fun to watch. That's for dang sure. So
he's nasty.
That's going to do it, I believe, for us here today on In the Gun. Final thank you to the fine folks at Johnston Equipment. Check them out on on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. And fall Camp is finally here. We've got more content coming your way. Again, if you haven't yet, go check out the Rich Rod series that Jed did, and also the 2-episode series that Jed did on Zach Alley, the great defensive breakdown. I promise you it's worth every minute of your watch. If you want to know more about the offense or the defense of the Mountaineers, that's your place to do it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube page on In the Gun for the Runaway Beer Truck. Yeah.
Answer his question too. Don't forget in the comments. I want Owen's answer. That's a great question about the mouthpiece. That's the question of the episode right there.
Chewers?
Ahead, sorry.
Any chewers out there?
Any chewers?
Any chewers or molders, dude? Which one are
chewers
you?
Chewers or molders? Yeah, chewers or molders.
Let's get a poll. Let's get a poll going. So that's going to do it for us here today. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the Runaway Beer Truck, Owen Schmitt, and the signal caller, Jed Drenning. Also for Wes Uhler, I'm Schuyler Callihan. And as always, be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. You've been In the Gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.